Welcome everybody to this new Tech Talk from Agile Lab. I'm Lorenzo and I'm here with Roberto Coluccio and Max Schultze. Hi Roberto, how are you?
Hi guys, hello everyone. Good to see you, Max. Good to see you, Lorenzo. I'm Roberto, Staff Data Architect at Agile Lab. Very interested in discussing interesting things with Max.
Okay, and Max, how are you?
All good, all good. Thank you so much for bringing me in today. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm Max Schultze. I'm Associate Director of Data Engineering in the data platform of HelloFresh. I've only been with the company for about 4 months now, but I'm very much focused on building data platforms and building tooling for data users across the entire organization. And even before that, I've already been working on data platforms for the past 7 years prior. So that is really like what a large part of my focus lies on.
So since more and more companies are considering a shift to data mesh and so using data product, could you walk us through some key architectural consideration they should consider during this transition to data mesh?
Yeah, I've personally been very lucky to have been working for 2 organizations so far that are on a data mesh journey and that are moving into the direction of like working towards the data mesh. So it's really interesting to see as well, like what are the overarching concepts that hold up and what are some of the things that really like differ in the respective setups, right? But before I touch on that, let's just very briefly recap like what are the main key aspects that we are focusing on here, right? The first thing I think, and that we very much already touched upon, is like distributed data ownership, right? Like we already touched upon like how computational governance becomes one of the prerequisites to actually enable that. But we are going to a place, and more organizations I see adopting for the sake of scalability of how they are working with data, to put ownership and responsibility closer to the people that know best what this data is actually about, which is closer to where the data is originally produced. And this is, of course, like a really interesting shift, which at the same time comes with this thought process of data products, or like product thinking for data for that matter, to really acknowledge the value that you are generating with the data that you have. Right. And we already touched upon this before with the shift left, shift right discussion, to really understand as well, like what are your stakeholders, right? And where is the value from the data that you have actually coming from, which in many cases in the past, unfortunately, was completely ignored. Yes, some value was generated somewhere, but it was more by an accident and as a byproduct. But now we are really changing this to a more conscious approach, where we are saying we are producing data for a purpose, for a reason. And we are attaching this to specific stakeholders, to specific values, to specific use cases that we are using to actually enable that. And then, of course, like coming in from the architectural point, again, you need to have the possibility to support all that with platform tooling, right? Computational governance is only one aspect to touch upon that, but you need to have the possibility to touch upon that also from an angle of providing all other tools that are required along the data journey, be it like storage, compute, scheduling, I don't know, data catalog integrations, a lot of things like this. And it's super crucial that you understand for yourself first, what are the things that you need specifically for your organization, and then you make a clear plan on how you actually want to get there. Roberto, I know, of course, that you folks have been like working very closely with a lot of customers that have been on that journey as well. Can you maybe also share some practical insights from like working with so many customers on this topic?
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. So I think that I'd like to put the focus on 2 aspects that usually are not so, I haven't seen them being mentioned a lot, in the community. So architecture-wise, one of the crucial aspects of a data mesh journey, in my opinion, but also in the opinion of the customers that we are advising for designing their data mesh journey, is to think of data mesh as a mid-long-term data strategy. So how, the implementation of the data strategy can be implementing a data mesh-like organization, data analytics-wise, and this needs to be, a long-term feasible and scalable approach. And how do you have that architecture-wise? The point here is to adopt as much as possible a technology agnostic architecture. So prefer open standards, prefer platforms and technologies that don't lock you in. Because it's easy, to start with having an all-in-one platform. Of course, you jumpstart right away to create your first data product. But we have seen uncertainty in the market, like always, for decades. And Paolo Platter, our CTO, has written a very interesting article about tech agnosticity in the data mesh architecture. I want to point this out because architecture-wise, I think is an important thing, to be decoupled from vendor-specific technologies and prefer as much as possible open standards, which can require some more awareness in how things are then integrated with each other. But it really enables this paradigm to be resilient against any vendors just blowing off because of market crisis, because of economic crisis, because one bank in Silicon Valley blows up and all the funds that maybe this startup have received are gone. So you cannot just rely, if you are an enterprise, of a single vendor in this sense. So distributed architecture and tech agnosticity is a key thing. And the other one that comes with these decisions, I think, is understanding that you need to push as much as possible towards the direction where you reduce the coupling among domains. And we are talking about coupling from a change management perspective. So if you force everyone to adopt the same platform, the same tool, the same technology, the same stack, the same standard, singular, you are basically saying, if we are going to change, I don't know, the storage system which is hosting everyone's data, then this change impacts every domain, every data product, every business that these domains are supporting. So if we want domains to have the capability to scale out, to innovate, etc., you need to some kind protect them and their change management. I was saying that providing this type of decoupling among domains, among teams from a tech perspective is really important, so to avoid unwanted changes to impact along the road all the users of the mesh.
Yeah, there's one really interesting thing that I would like to add to that, which is I fully agree that with the possibility to provide flexibility, you enable domains to take decisions quicker. But of course, it also adds complexity, right? Like when you're saying you're introducing or you're allowing people to choose their own tech stack for a larger scale organization, it brings you in a situation that sooner or later you need to support a lot of different things, also from a platform perspective. What I always love to see is if you get the possibility to create abstraction layers, right? That you actually get the possibility to create like clear interfaces, for instance, no longer having the need for people to interact with your cloud-based storage system directly, but have something like a table-driven interface on top of that, which is agnostic to the storage layer underneath, but which allows people to interact with the system in a predefined way that is independent from the technology solution. And that is something that we've seen a lot recently pop up, right? When I'm looking at like data storage formats like Delta Lake, Hoodie, Iceberg. When I'm looking at more higher level abstraction layers like Lake Formation on AWS or like Unity Catalog on the Databricks side, like there's a lot of things that are happening right now on the market where you're seeing that like creating abstraction layers and creating clear interfaces simplifies the user experience, while at the same time, again, like preventing exactly what you said, that you are just focused on one specific thing, and once it breaks, it blows up for the entire organization.
Yeah, just think about Databricks Uniform, right? So they basically accepted that the world can consume data lake formats that are not Delta Lake, even if it's Delta Lake under the hood, but they've understood that this abstraction layer is important for federation and for interoperability. Absolutely.
Awesome. So since the data product flow framework has been generating quite a buzz lately, particularly with its potential to enhance the implementation and management of data mesh architecture, how can organizations identify their data products?
So let me pick that up as the data product flow is a framework that Agile Lab has published. But it reconnects very well with what Max has said in, I think, the second question, which was, understanding the why, shifting right. So understanding what are the real business needings and real business opportunities that can be addressed with some, data-driven solutions. Especially in the analytical layer, but not mandatory. So it can start with the analytical layer, since the first purpose of creating data products in this case is to provide this analytical layer with high quality distributed, discoverable, etc., assets. But then usually business use cases can be operational services that require this data to go back to the operational layer. But regardless, you need to understand the value chain business wise first of all. So this pattern is this data product flow is basically a framework inherited from the event storming one. I don't know if you're familiar with that, by Brandolini. And it basically is a framework that brings the company to map business opportunities first, and then go back to what are the actors involved, what are the systems involved, what are the triggers involved that can that can cross multiple system, multiple business unit, and multiple teams that then lead to the ultimate business value. And so this is how basically you end up with identifying data products, data opportunities. And these data opportunities are then mapped with some canvas, some models that basically identify, the why, the what, the how, and the constraints, and everything that goes on. But that you can have your bounded context that says here is a data product within one domain. But we understand that the meaning and the terms that you are referring with about this concept are changing if we do another step. That means that maybe you are changing your ubiquitous language. Now I'm using DDD terminology, but it helps to identify data products and also the boundaries between domains.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, of course, we never start from scratch, right? Like, it doesn't matter like which organization we are in. There's always some sort of legacy. There's always some things that are already in place on the data side. There are some things where you clearly know, like, these are the most crucial data assets that you have in your organization, that like the most decisions are based on, and that are really like helping to drive the insights in the organization. And that also means you already have predefined knowledge of what matters the most, right? Like, it might be sales data in a retail organization, right? Like, which is usually the most crucial data asset that is combined with any other data set to create value, be it information about the customers, be it information about logistics and shipments or payments providers or what have you. But there's always this one thing that stands in the middle, right? And usually when you look at your business model, that already gives you a very good idea on what are the core aspects of your business that matter the most, right? Be it sales, be it customers, be it products, be it logistics. Like, often there's some very clear boundaries where you see that these are the main aspects that are the most important ones, and those are exactly the ones that you want to focus on first, right? Like, those are the ones where you generate the most value, and those are clearly the ones that deserve to be data products, that deserve the attention that is needed to provide high quality data, that deserve the possibility to use this as trusted data assets that can allow you to make good decisions, and that can allow you to generate the insights that your organization needs.
Yeah. And coming back to what Max said, so companies have a lot of legacy. Companies maybe are not ready to take this leap toward data mesh. So even if they are very interested in data mesh, they aren't sure if they're ready to take this leap. How can they assess the readiness for this change?
Yeah, it brings me back to one thing that I always love to say, which is data mesh is a huge buzzword and a huge hype, and that there's a lot of people that talk about it, but nobody really knows what it actually is, right? Because once you get to the point of really understanding what's behind data mesh, you understand that the concepts are not that complicated, or well, they might be complicated to execute, but they are not that complicated to understand. And if you look at any organization out there, I'm fairly confident to say that they have already done 1 or 2 steps along the journey by themselves, independently of thinking about the data mesh concept. Right, and this is honestly like where I have started in the past as well. Right, when I was still working in my previous organization, before the data mesh concept got published, we already did a lot of things in terms of like changing the organization, setting up dedicated domains, just because there were smart people that were making good decisions in the organization, and ended up in a situation that once the data mesh term came around and we started looking at, hey, what this concept is actually about, we realized that for a lot of parts of it, we are actually already doing it. Right, and I think this is something where the reflection needs to start. Right, like if you are a new organization, you think this could be something for you, reflect on it. Like really make a true and honest self-assessment on where are you at right now. Because even if you then say, okay, this data mesh thing is not for us, but this product thinking actually sounds very useful and something that we should do, or we should like have a better platform to enable our internal customers, that is something that you should pick up from there. Right, and like this is why I always recommend start with a true and honest self-assessment to really understand where you're at right now, because only then are you truly able to understand where do you need to go and what are the things that you need to do to actually get there. And this is really like where ultimately I also always say like it starts decoupling from the data mesh term itself. Right, the data mesh stays a buzzword, and I still think it's a good thing because it creates the awareness on all those topics, right? But once you have actually done this self-assessment, you will understand what are the key aspects of it that you should focus on, and then you will no longer talk about the buzzword, but you talk about the actual stuff that you need to get done.
Yeah, this makes perfect sense. So you need to break down, not the silos in this case, but you need to break down the paradigm. And you know, pillar by pillar, understand what actually does that mean. And it's important to understand it because otherwise you are assessing yourself against what, right? So you need to really understand what these pillars are about. You know, product thinking, data as a product, federated computational governance, data self-service infrastructure as a platform. Why are there these pillars and what do they refer to? So you need to understand what they really imply, you know, what they're asking, and then you can basically assess. And let me say that, you know, assessing against all of them is just, you know, an implication of understanding that, you know, they are all connected together. So you might have already started the journey, like Max said, but they rely on each other, because if you want to provide, as we said, right, you want to provide domains autonomy, but you can leave them on their own. You cannot let the cognitive load increase. You need some enforcement company-wise of governance if you decentralize, etc., etc. So are you ready to, you know, embrace this pillar? Or maybe you don't need all of them. So the assessment should be about what your organization might actually need. We have seen organizations that maybe don't really benefit because they are too small of really decentralizing ownership. So ownership can remain somehow centralized, but they still might need, you know, templates that might still need computational governance and benefit from having a platform mindset. So first understand what your goals could be. Those goals can be addressed by the data mesh pillars, all 4 of them, then okay. And then start understanding what they mean, you know, piece by piece. As Agile Lab, we have created an assessment survey for this. It's available on our website. It covers all the pillars, but instead of just the vanilla literature definition of data mesh, is really tackles the low level actual execution items that should be carried out if you want to embrace the paradigm. We're coming with our own experience, so. Audience, go and check that out if you want it.
So I think it was a very interesting conversation. I would like to thank Roberto for being here. And I would like to thank also Max for being here. I hope to see you again. And maybe in a future tech talk, we can continue talking about data governance and data mesh, or some more interesting things as well. Thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
See you.
Yeah, as well on my side. So Max, always interesting to talk with you. And every time new things pop up just by talking, so it's always interesting. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you.